We begin now at the top of Daf Beis Amud Aleph in Meseches Rosh Hashana. This is Rosh Hashana Daf 2a. The Mishnah says, Arba Rosh Hashanim Haim. There are 4 Rosh Hashanas. Be'echad b'Nisan Rosh Hashana l'Melachim v'Leregalim. On the first day of Nisan is Rosh Hashana for kings and for holidays. Be'echad be'Elul Rosh Hashana l'Maiser Behema. On the first day of Elul, that's Rosh Hashana for the halachas of Maiser Behema. Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Shimon Omer, Rabbi Lazar and Rabbi Shimon say Be'echad b'Tishrei on the first of Tishrei. Be'echad b'Tishrei Rosh Hashana l'Shanim v'Lishmitin l'Yovlos l'Netia v'Liyarakos. On the first day of Tishrei, that's Rosh Hashanah for the years, and for Shemitah, and for Yovel, and for Netia and Yerakos. That's going to be explained in Rashi. Be'echad b'Shvat Rosh Hashanah l'Ilon. On the first day of Shvat is Rosh Hashanah for the trees. Kedivrei Beis Shammai. That follows the opinion of Beis Shammai. Beis Hillel Omer and Beis Hillel say b'Chamisha Asar Bo. It's on the 15th of Shvat. That's the Rosh Hashanah for the trees. Rashi over here says Arba Rosh Hashanim l'Malachim. So again, on the first of Nisan was Rosh Hashanah for the kings. Regilim hayu limnos zman shtaroseim l'shnos hamelech. So they used to count when they would date the shtaros, the documents. They would put the date according to the year of the king. Mishana sha'amad bo hamelech. You go from the year that the king began his rule. Kedamrinu b'Meseches Gittin, like we say in Meseches Gittin. Mishum shalom malchus. This was done to keep peace with the kingdom. And the Chachamim said that on the first of Nisan, that is considered the beginning of the year, meaning to say, for example, let's say the king became king in Shvat or Adar, that would be the end of year 1 when Nisan arrived, and then they would begin to count the next year. So that's what it means that the first of Nisan is Rosh Hashanah l'Melachim. The Gemara is going to explain what it means to say that it's considered Rosh Hashanah as far as the holidays on the first of Nisan. L'Maiser Behema. Then we said that on the first of Elul, or according to another opinion, on the first of Tishrei is Rosh Hashanah for Maiser Behema. What does that mean? She'ein ma'asrin min hanoladim b'shana zu al hanoladim b'chaverta. There's halacha Maiser Behema. You have to separate out 1/10 of your animals, so you only take off the Maiser from a year, from the same year. In other words, animals that are born in the same year, you have to separate from that group Maiser Behema. That's the idea. Min hanoladim b'shana zu. You're not allowed to take from those that are born in 1 year, al hanoladim b'chaverta, and those that are born in another year. Tichsiv aser ta'aser es kol tevu azarecha hayotze hasada shana shana. Uses the phrase shana shana. In other words, each year you do a separate Meister Behema. V'yomer marbe v'choros v'perek Meister Behema b'shtei Meisros hakosim medaber Meister Behema v'yachad Meister Dagan. That pasuk that we just quoted is talking about Meister Behema, and it's also talking about Meister Dagan, which is the Meister that you take for grain. L'shanim mifarish b'Gemara. So then it said that on the first of Tishrei is also Rosh Hashanah for the years. That's going to be explained in the Gemara. L'shmita u'l'yovlos. It's also Rosh Hashanah as far as Shemitah and Yovel, meaning mishanichnas Tishrei. It means to say once Tishrei begins, aser lachrosh v'lizroa min haTorah. That's when it's aser to plow and to plant. On the Shemitah year, which is the 7th year, and the Yovel year, which is the 50th year, you're not allowed to plow, you're not allowed to plant, so that begins on Tishrei. Then it also said that the first of Tishrei is Rosh Hashanah l'Netia. What does l'Netia mean? L'minyan shnei arla. That has to do with counting the years of arla. The halacha is that when you have trees, so the first 3 years, the fruits are prohibited. Ve'afilu nata ba'av, so the halacha would be as follows. Let's say you plant the tree in Av. Kol sashanasa rishona l'sof Elul. Once Elul comes, that's the end of year 1. Now you're in year 2. Uvekula mefarish time of the Gemara. All of these, the reasoning is going to be explained in the Gemara. So again, that's what it means to say Echad b'Tishrei is Rosh Hashanah for Netia. Liyarakos, what does it mean? Liyarakos l'maiser yerek. The halacha is to take off maiser for the vegetables. She'ein tarmin u'ma'asrin min hanilkut lifnei Rosh Hashanah al shalacha Rosh Hashanah. You don't take off trum and maiser from that which was collected before Rosh Hashanah and that which is collected after Rosh Hashanah. And then finally, there was machlokas in the Mishnah. When is the Rosh Hashanah le'ilanos? Is it going to be on the first of? Is it going to be in the first of Shvat, or is it going to be on the 15th of Shvat? Le'ilan, le'inyan meiser. That also has to do with meiser. She'in ma'asrin peiros ha'ilan shechantu kodem Shvat al shechantu la'achar Shvat. You don't take off meiser from the fruits of a tree that blossomed before Shvat for a tree that blossomed after Shvat. Shebe'ilan holech achar chanata. When it comes to a tree, we follow the blossoming of a Gemara mefarish ma'ishna Shvat, and the Gemara will explain why we choose the month of Shvat for this purpose. And so the Gemara says, L'malachim l'mai hilcha. So what does it mean to say that on the first of Nisan is Rosh Hashanah for kings? So the Gemara says, Amar Rav Chisda says, L'shtaros, that refers to the halachas of documents. That's as Rashi already explained. The Tanan, as we learned in the Mishnah, Shtare chov hamukdamin psulin. Let's say you have a document That's a shtar chov. A shtar chov means it's a document that allows you to collect an obligation. It allows you to collect a debt. So if the date is written earlier than the actual debt, that's going to be possible. We can't have a shtar that has a date written too early. But if the date is written later, meaning it's post-dated, that's going to be kosher. Rashi over here says, it means to say, why did the Rabban and why did the Chacham decide to make a date for counting the years of kings? Why don't we just say that whenever the king became king, that should be the day that we count as the beginning of his first year? L'shtaros lahavchen, and again, that should be when we also start the second year. We should follow that date. L'shtaros lahavchen eze shtar chov mukdam lamilva ve'eze mu'cher. So the answer is they wanted to create a set date because they have to write up shtaros. So then again, the date has to be accurate to know if a shtar, the date is written too early, or the date is written too late. The Tanan b'Meseches Shvius, like we learned in the Mishnah in Shvius, shtar chov hamukdamim psulin. So the halacha, like we said, was if you have a shtar chov that is predated, that's a problem. Why is that a problem? The reason is as follows. The date on the shtar can be used. Let's say you're a buyer and you bought something from the borrower. So the halacha is the borrower has to pay the lender, and if the borrower has no money, so any property that he sold after he incurred the debt, that property can be collected by the lender, even from the purchasers. And when people buy this property, they understand that if you're buying property, there might be a lien on that property. But the way you do it is you follow the date on the shtar. So you say if the date on my shtar was before you purchased this property, that means my lien preceded your purchase, so I'm allowed to take it. So that's why it's important that you can't have the date too early. What's going to happen here is the malv is going to collect not appropriately, because really the sale might have been before the loan, but the date was written too early. The date was written earlier than the actual loan. You're looking at the shtar, that testifies that the loan was first. So they said you can't use such a shtar. You can't use it even from the actual date of the loan. If you have such a shtar, the shtar is thrown out, it becomes like a milva al peh. It becomes like a loan that took place without a document. The document is nothing, and the halacha is in general that when it comes to a loan that's without a document, you're not allowed to collect from the chasim mishubadim. There you can't have a lien on the property. Now Rashi points out, so what if we counted the years of the king from when the king actually started? And that date would be the date which starts the second year, the third year, etc. That would be a problem. It would be very hard to tell whether shtar is the wrong date. Let's say, for example, you have a shtar that said in the year of Kislev, in the third year, the so-and-so borrowed. The Edom say, when we signed, we didn't actually see the loan. The Lova just said that we should sign. That's okay, because we learned that you're allowed to write a shtar for a Lova, even if the Malva is not present. The Lova can say, I'm telling you, I'm obligated, sign this shtar. Now, we don't really know when the loan is. The Lova can tell Edom to sign a shtar because he wants to obligate himself, and we don't know when the loan took place. Maybe it took place earlier or later. Now, we do know that there was a loan that took place of a monah in Tammuz in the third year of the particular king. Now, if the judges don't know in what month the king became the king, Kodim Kislev. In Kislev, Kodim Tammuz, we have no idea what this Tammuz means. Is it the Tammuz before Kislev, or is Kislev before Tammuz? Meaning we don't know exactly when this was. Im Shanaso Maschelas Ben Tammuz LeKislev, meaning what year does the king start? Does it start? Maybe his kingdom started between Tammuz and Kislev. Maybe it started after Kislev. Nimtza Kislev Kodim Tammuz B'chol Shanosav. Again, depending on when the king starts his reign, if you're going to go by that date, you have no idea which month comes before the other month because you don't know when to start each year. Ushtar Muktamu, then it would be a Shtar Muktam. V'mamad ben Kislev l'Tammuz, if the king became king between Kislev and Tammuz, Shala Acharav, with the Tammuz that followed Kislev, Nimsa Tammuz Kodim l'Kislev. Then it comes out that every year Tammuz is before Kislev, B'chol Shanosav every year. Ushtar Mucher, then the Shtar actually is post-dated. Now that we always know that Nisan is the Rosh Hashanah, we at least know always the order of the months. So then Tammuz Kodem L'Kislev, we know always, obviously, we follow our calendar. So if Nisan is Rosh Hashanah, then Tammuz is always going to be before Kislev. And the Gemara continues, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Melech Sha'amad Be'esrim V'tisha Ba'adar. Let's say a king became the king on the 29th of Adar, right at the end of Adar. Kevan Shegia Echad B'Nisan, once the first of Nisan comes, also Lo Shana, that's the end of his year 1. V'im lo amad ela bechad b'Nisan, if the king became the king on the first of Nisan, ein monin lo shana ad sheyagia Nisan acher, it's not considered the end of his first year until the next Nisan arrives, and that's just as we said before. The Gemara now says, Amar Mar, the master said, Melech she'amad be'esrim v'tisha ba'adar. Let's say a king became king on the 29th of Adar. Kevan she'gia echad b'Nisan, also lo shana. Once the first day of Nisan comes, that's considered to be a full year. Rashi over here says, also lo shana, kolomar kolso lo shana. So again, like we said, that first year is finished. Ume'ata monin lo shana shniya. Now we count it as the second year. And so the Gemara says, this, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Beis, Amud Beis.